Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, when there's a song in your heart, it's hard to know that there's anything else out there in the world. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with, once more, as always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to assume that you are, because you're listening right now. You can find us. You can subscribe to the podcast. You can find us over at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google. It is all good. Basically, wherever you get your podcasts. And plus, you can find every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel, where we back everything up and have the entire archive. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we'd really appreciate it. Also, please check us out on the social media, as the kids call it. Check us out over at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of updates. And finally, and I say it a lot, but it's true, because it's the most important. Most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, the moving image at large, because we love to write about it and talk about it, and we love it when you come read about it. So please stop on by. On this episode, we are talking about a real cute movie, a real affable, sort of fun, a little silly, but fun movie. It's called Falling For Figaro, which is on video-on-demand platforms now, and it stars the incomparable Danielle Macdonald, who you may recognize from films like Patty Cakes, and the iconic Joanna Lumley herself from Ab Fab fame. And it's the story of a brilliant young fund manager who, she just doesn't love her job very much. It's not very fulfilling. So she packs up, leaves the job, leaves the long-term boyfriend to chase the lifelong dream, which, believe it or not, is becoming an opera singer. And she has to go to the Scottish Highlands to do it, because that's where there is this world-renowned coach and trainer played by, again, the iconic Joanna Lumley. And hilarity ensues. It's affable. It's an affable, cute. It's a little corny, a little silly, but it's really a likable and pleasant film. And we had the distinct pleasure of sitting down with writer-director Ben Levin to talk about sort of the origin of the story and just staying true to opera in general, and just, the art of filmmaking and how he kind of stumbled into it. Really, it's an interesting story, and Ben's an interesting guy. So check out Falling For Figaro when you get a chance, if you want to see something that'll put a smile on your face, and enjoy our talk with Ben, because it's a good one.
But I mean, obviously, first off, just to kick it off, congratulations on the film. I really got a kick out of it. I guess my first question for you is, walk me through the origin of the story.
Practically every film I've done just happens by accident. There's no kind of agenda. And, the script arrived in Judy's computer one day, and it had one of the odd phenomenon of having money already attached. There was
well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it was highly incentivizing. And I got a chance to have a go at the script, and I really loved the idea that it was focused around music, and it took me back to those school days when I heard those famous lines, if music be the food of love. And I thought, okay, this is the one where you sort of prove that point. I mean, just all the elements kind of fed into that sort of sentimental, romantic side of me, which I was worried it was disappearing into reality. Anyway, it that's what it appealed to, the mushy side of me.
Well, I'm with you on that, because the film has a real charm to it, which I just found adorable. And I mean, can you talk to me a little bit just about not just finding Danielle, but like pairing her with Joanna and Gary, because they all work so well together?
Yeah, these things tend to, again, happen serendipitously. It so happened that Joanna's husband, Stephen Barlow, is a very distinguished opera conductor. So, and he came into the picture first.
Wow.
And
okay.
when I discovered, oh wow, Stephen's wife is Joanna Lumley, I thought, okay, it's meant to be, you know, it's fate. And you know, she took to the concept. I think she was delighted to play something that wasn't Patsy, you know,
right.
And you know, she has a wonderful sense of humor and an inbuilt love of opera. So we got lucky. And Danielle came into the picture. Again, it was just one of those brainstorming sessions, and Judy said, "What about Danielle Macdonald?" And all of a sudden, the penny dropped, and I looked at Dumplin and patty cakes, and I thought she was a natural. And there's something very real about her, you know. I wasn't going for kind of Ken and Barbie casting. I was going for interesting, quirky casting.
Well, no, and I mean, I think it works well because it's such a charming piece. Now, I mean, I guess that kind of dovetails into my next question. Did everyone do their own singing, or like, I can imagine that's the equivalent of stunts on a picture like this, but was everyone sort of on board for trying to sing as much as they could?
Yeah, everyone came from a different sort of place. Initially, when we started talking about the project, we started talking about casting a real opera singer. And that faded because ultimately, you know, there's more acting than singing in the movie. I mean, you can't deny that. Most of it is just, you know, not singing, acting. And I think Danielle, in a way, was beginning to specialize in singing parts where she couldn't actually sing. I mean, I think Dolly Parton told her personally one day, stick to acting. But, you know, a hell of a lot of, so we revoiced her as we did Hugh, but there's still a hell of a lot of work goes into pretending it's you. I mean, she spent most of her time working with a singing coach known as a repetiteur to help her through every detail of every song, you know, both the emotional elements and the technical elements. How would you breathe so that you know, not only would the music do its job emotionally, but any singer looking at it would say, yeah, that person's really singing. So that there's a tremendous amount of preparatory work goes into every element of every song. She was she took it very, very seriously and did all that work. Hugh Skinner, on the other hand, had some singing training. You know, in his boyhood, he'd been in opera choirs, in fact, there are a few notes of his that we still use, but we wanted to show a kind of a progression in the singers, so that they started in one place and ended in another, and it took professional voices to be able to carry that off. A couple of the singers are live in the movie, you know, so a lot of the singers you see in the competitions are you know, real opera singers. So there's a mixture, but the leads were revoiced.
No, and you know what? I mean, it really did feel like throughout the film, you weren't using opera as sort of a prop or a gimmick. It felt like you were trying to stay very true to sort of the culture of, I guess, being in that community. And I mean, I think that really came through. How important was that for you to not sort of just use it as a trope and try to be honest with it?
Well, it was important from the very outset, and you know, one of the first people we consulted was very old friend of ours who was a a famous opera director in London. He sadly has passed away from COVID, but I wanted his eye on it to reassure me that there was an authenticity about it and to help steer us in the right direction. And he steered us to Stephen Barlow, who helped me choose most of the songs in the film. So and every step of the way, we had professionals guiding us and helping us. We always had a repetitor on set whenever there was any singing, and some of it was filmed in the Glasgow Music Conservatorium. So we always felt a connection to the real opera community up there.
That's fantastic. And I mean, something else which just made the film feel really grounded. I mean, I have to admit, I'm a big Gary Lewis fan. Anytime I see him in a movie, it just feels honest and authentic. Like, talk to me about just trying to get, because I mean, his character feels such a linchpin for the whole thing.
Yeah, he's the real deal, Gary. He has one of the best lines in the movie, actually.
Was it the 28 years?
Yes. And he's so fun to work with because you can play him like an instrument, So and he doesn't mind. He's got such a range. He used to make me laugh just by standing there doing nothing, just by looking at me. And they were. The cast really behaved like an ensemble. They hung out together and ate together, and there was a real feeling of camaraderie between them, which makes a difference.
No, absolutely, and I mean, I think that comes through in the finished product as well. And I mean, again, it's one of those pieces that's just fun and it's sweet, and you're really sort of getting invested in the characters, and like you said, a little bit of the mushy romance at the same time. And I'm kind of curious for you as like sort of a filmmaker, as a storyteller. I looked through your credit list. You've got a pretty diverse mix of stuff. Like, is it like what draws you into a story? Is it just a character, or
it's crazy? Because I don't know how to manage my life. I mean, that's the problem.
Do any of us really?
I don't know, but one part of me says, why didn't you just, start with violence and stick with violence like most, sensible filmmakers? And I guess that I probably had an aversion from the very outset to violence in films, and thought, well, I'll do everything else. And I, way back, when we were first married, my wife once said to a producer that I knew nothing about love and romance, and I thought, okay, I'll show you. So it's been a kind of a lifelong mission in a way that, I wanted to. But look, I don't know. I mean, I've started also becoming more involved in films which are to do with disability activism. It's a subject that I did avoid for a great part of my life, but then, when we faced it and found that later in life, if you bring something of your personal self to it, it can make a difference. And, my next project is about a disability pioneer in the 1930s. So, so I'm hoping that at this kind of, well, I don't know where I am in my career, but whatever stage it is, that I might start to focus a little bit more. I don't know, but I tell you, when I try to avoid looking at my resume, but when I do, I said, I can't help thinking, who is this guy?
Well, I mean, I think that spins into something else I always like to ask. I mean, it's a bit of a silly question, but I'm always fascinated by the answers. Like, when you think back to sort of the early days, was there a movie or a moment that was the light bulb moment for a young Ben to go, okay, I want to be a filmmaker, I want to be a storyteller?
Well, the storyteller aspect of it, I think, started when I was very young. I mean, I'm talking 11, 12 years old.
Sure.
Because I wasn't, part of a kind of a sporting culture. I read a lot and lived quite a bit in a fantasy world. So I started writing when I was about that age. I don't know why. I just the beauty of storytelling just got into me, and it wasn't about myself. It was about things that I saw and people I met, and not long afterwards, I became really passionate about photography. This was in the days when you still had film and got your hands wet and all that sort of stuff. And that was a whole world to me. And but I never. They were passions. They were not vocations in a professional sense. And I went to college and became a lawyer and practiced law. And then, quite by accident, I got shunted sideways into what I describe as just another line of show business. By accident, I ended up going to film school when I was in my 20s, still in my in my early 20s, and in England, and the direction of my life changed, but not through any planning. There was no aha moment.
Right. Okay.
Occasionally you get these aha moments when you're trying to think of a film subject, and it kind of grabs you and won't let you go. But I had no agenda to become a filmmaker. I don't know, it just happened.
Stumbled into it. Oh, I love that.
Well, a lot of careers happen that way.
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, just to start putting a bow on this, I mean, Figaro really has this sort of innate charm to it with these really strong female characters that I absolutely love. And I mean, I'm just curious, at the end of the day, because I mean, people are going to try to put things in boxes. And I think the thing I love about this film the most is that nobody really fits in a box, even though it's telling sort of a very nice and even a little bit mushy sort of romantic kind of story. Like, what's the hope for you as more and more people sort of see this film out there in the universe? Because I mean, again, it's one of those films that actually kind of disarmed me. I expected one thing, but I didn't necessarily get what I expected.
Oh, what were you expecting?
I to be honest, I think I was expecting something a little more maybe sort of traditional and rote, but I mean, I was quite refreshed with how it didn't go in those routes.
Yeah. Look, I don't think that I have a lot of control over these things. You are who you are as a storyteller. It's hard to, sometimes, quite often I've said I'd like to be a different kind of storyteller just so I could make more money, mostly, but it's been impossible. I don't know how it is for others, but for me, it's been really impossible to escape who I am. And I don't kind of write or direct with a sense of, delivering a product to an audience and having some expectation. It's all done on a wing and a prayer. It's like, okay, this is the stuff that's coming out of my head. I hope people get it, but it really is a wing and a prayer. It's not as calculated, or but it lacks an agenda. It's more an act of faith. And when you're lucky, people get it. And often these things are whether you kind of hit the zeitgeist of the time.
Right.
With our probably most successful movie, The Sessions, in terms of its outreach, that subject matter just happened to hit the public at the time they wanted to hear about it.
For sure, totally.
And I often, in my own taste in films, I'm drawn to the sort of films that no one ever hears about, that don't get a lot of accolades, that don't have big names in them. I'm interested in the stuff that really feels different. And it's, I don't know, it's hard to escape from that. The mainstream doesn't interest me all that much. So I'm kind of waving the flag, if you like, for quirky, offbeat, different, iconoclastic. So I'm hoping that, there are enough people in the audience. I mean, given now that you have this sort of vast digital audience,
Yeah.
There's someone for every movie, really.
No, there really is, my friend. And you know what? Keep waving that flag. And thank you for the work, and thank you for the time today, sir. This was a lot of fun.
Well, it's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, sir. Thanks again for the time, and congratulations on the film.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.